जैसे कहते थे लोग कि मैं निर्भया की तरह तुम्हें कर दूंगा, निर्भया की तरह मार दूंगा, तो आज उनको भी जवाब मिला कि मैं निर्भया की तरह अगर किसी के साथ करूंगा तो निर्भया की तरह हमें फांसी की सजा भी मिलेगी।
Her story shook the collective conscience of the entire nation. December 16, 2012. A 23-year-old paramedic raped and brutalized by 6 men in a moving bus in the heart of the national capital. But her fight wasn't hers alone. The nation prayed for her. And when she succumbed to her injuries, the anger poured onto the streets. The Delhi High Court termed it a rarest of rare case and awarded the death penalty to the rapists. But the youngest and the most barbaric of the 6, the 17-year-old juvenile, got away with as little as a 3-year term in a juvenile home.
From the investigation and all, they came to know that that boy was the most cruel to Madam Nirbhaya. So I think the thing should go down, the age should go down for the rape case. For the rape case, it should be at least 14 to say that yes, he is accused, he is a culprit. Otherwise, the children, look, after 3 years, he is free.
They showed no mercy to Nirbhaya, but they went in to appeal to the country's highest court. But the Supreme Court showed them no mercy, saying, I quote, "Offence created a tsunami of shock. The convicts treated the victim as an object of enjoyment with the single purpose of ravishing her. The nature and manner of the crime devastated social trust and falls in the rarest of rare category, warranting death penalty." End quote.
It is something which was very important. The Supreme Court today, by giving death sentence to all the rapists of Nirbhaya, they have in a way emboldened all the Nirbhayas in this country and given a very tight slap to all the rapists. This was something that was needed. It was the need of the hour. A very strong message has been delivered by Supreme Court.
आज सच्चाई की जीत हुई है। एक जिस तरह से हिंदुस्तान में रेप बढ़ रहा है, उस पर एक ये करारा तमाचा है, एक कड़ी रोक है। क्योंकि अगर आज डेथ पेनल्टी निर्भया के रेपिस्ट को नहीं दी जाती तो ये हो जाता कि महिलाओं को कोई सेफ्टी देने वाला नहीं है, प्रोटेक्शन देने वाला नहीं है।
If you're not going to give them the right punishment, then the others who are doing this, they will not be feared by what's happening.
Definitely they should be given capital punishment. That is how people will change. That's how men's mentality will change.
At least all these people who are thinking of doing this kind of crime, they should be fear. They should have the fear in their mind.
Fear of rarest केस था और इस केस में इसी टाइप का जजमेंट होना चाहिए ताकि लोगों को और इस सोसाइटी को एक सबक मिल पाए कि इस टाइप की एक्टिविटी दोबारा कभी नहीं रिपीट होनी चाहिए।
It was a 5-year-long wait for justice, punctuated by promises to make India's streets safer for women. But has anything really changed? A repeat sex offender let off on bail sexually abuses a 6-year-old in Mumbai. 2 bike-borne youth caught on camera groping and molesting a girl on a street in Bengaluru. Countless women sexually abused by private cab drivers in different parts of the country. Instances after instances highlighting the fact that despite stronger laws, despite public outrage, and despite various governments' promises, 50% of India still has to look over their shoulder when they step out of their doors. Mirror Now report.
You're watching The Urban Debate on Mirror Now. I'm Faye D'Souza. Thank you for joining us. After 5 long years, the verdict is finally out. The brutes who raped and mutilated Nirbhaya will be hanged to death. The Supreme Court has refused to show any mercy to Nirbhaya's rapist. A special Supreme Court bench hearing the case upheld the death sentence passed by the Delhi High Court, and it has been a long wait, not just for the victims' parents, but for the entire country, especially for Indian women who needed to feel again like somebody cared, who needed to feel again that our safety means something to the courts, to the police, to the hospitals, to all of those people along the route of these last 5 years who kept us from justice. But the real question we have to ask tonight is this, viewers. Why haven't we learnt anything? Has this girl's and this young lady's life gone in vain? Remember when her mother first started speaking in public, she said, "I've lost my daughter, but I'm going to make sure that nothing like this ever happens again." Can we as a country truly assure Asha Singh today that nothing like this will ever happen again? The numbers of crime against women are rising year on year. Worse still in Delhi, where the crime actually happened. We get repeated complaints from women who tell us that when they go to police stations to write any sort of a complaint or register any sort of a complaint for a sexual offence, they're always discouraged. They're always intimidated. Let's not even begin to talk about the state of the public government hospitals where victims of sexual offence are sent for their rape kit tests. They're treated in the most horrid manner. Why is it that we haven't learnt a thing? Why is it that government after government that has made promise after promise has done precious little to assure half the population of this country of our basic safety? What are we going to say to Asha ji today when every time we open our newspapers, there's a case of another rape? Sometimes the victim is 7 years old. Sometimes the victim is 2 months old. We refuse to learn, and our governments refuse to act. Have we learnt nothing? That's the question I'm asking today. And to all of the women who are watching of any age, do you truly feel safe in your country? And do you truly feel safe in the city that you occupy? Why is it that our streets are still not lit? Why is it that we still don't have CCTV cameras? Why is it that we still don't have the requisite number of police officers and constables for the population that we have in this country? Why is it that we're still understaffed in our courts and cases take this long to be heard? Joining me on the show this evening, Aishwarya Bhati is an advocate of the Supreme Court. Vikram Singh, former DGP UP. Gopal Krishna Agarwal is the spokesperson of the BJP. Nilanjana Chakrabarti is a social activist joining us from Kolkata. Swapnil Kothari, corporate lawyer and managing partner at S. Kothari and Company. Viraf Patel, model and actor, joins us as well. And Annie Zaidi is an actor and a journalist. N. Ramachandran is the president and the CEO of the Indian Police Foundation and former DGP of Assam and Meghalaya. I welcome all of our guests into the studio. I'm going to start with Gopal Krishna Agarwal. Gopal Krishna Agarwal, we still don't have the kind of safety that we actually want in this country. When will that happen, Gopal Krishna Agarwal?
No, actually, the law and order in some of the states is a problem. That's a big problem. And overall, the issue is that women are not safe in India in many places. The question is of the mindset also of the people and the other issues. There are several issues, and the education and proper care by civic sense has to come from the people also. Government is also trying to put up more CCTV and other issues, and if ultimately the law of the land should prevail and there should be fear in the mind of the people, that will alone help. Government is appraised to the situation. Government is trying to improve the law and order situation in every place. And therefore, and we welcome today what the Supreme Court has come out with a strong punishment, and even juvenile court, the law with regarding to juvenile crimes were also amended. So it has to be a concerted effort. Government has to do, state government has to do. People have to be more vigilant. They have to be more compassionate with regard to these crimes. Everything has to be work together to do this. That's the way we can move ahead and create this kind of
Okay, so it's all our responsibility. We need to be more vigilant. We need to teach our children better. Perhaps we need to light our cities, and perhaps we need to put in CCTV cameras and appoint our own judges and make sure that we have enough police officers as well. The citizens really need to get together and get more done. Annie Zaidi, do you feel safe in your city, in your country, Annie?
Well, which city would be the question? I actually think that the answer is not better lighting, and it is not CCTV cameras. This is a completely backwards approach. The approach of monitoring is the wrong approach in my view. The correct approach is education. You cannot endlessly monitor a whole population. It is foolish. We cannot always be watching each other, and we do not always want to be watched. Who wants to be watched all the time? I don't want to be watched all the time. I don't think women want that. I think deep down I think all of us recognize that it's really a power game. The reason women are not safe is that a large population of India and across the world believes actually that women need to be watched, and that
so you're saying that we don't want to be watched. That's the point you're making.
We do not want to be controlled
we've had this conversation earlier in the day as well. Everybody says that we should leave it up to education, which means that we should be teaching the current 6-year-old boys to respect women better. And by the time those 6-year-old boys turn into adults and change the country, an entire generation of women will be lost to people who are pointing fingers at each other. Central governments at state governments, police at hospitals, hospitals at police, and then everybody at the judicial system. Who's going to actually take responsibility for women's safety in this country, Nilanjana?
I think, yes, that's the billion-dollar question that you have asked. Who is going to take the responsibility of the women in the country? The fact of the matter remains, first and foremost, I think the government who is at the helm of affairs, whether it is at the state level or at the central level, I think women's security, women's safety, women's rights should be of absolute priority in any of these, either of the two departments that I have mentioned, first thing. Second thing is that, a lot of water has already gone under the bridge. We've reached kind of the zenith, I think, if I may put it that way, and it's an utter shame today that as we are in the year 2017, we are still talking about our basic rights, our basic privileges. So what we really need to do is, there is a sizable population in the country which is very, very regressive, if I may put it that way. So what we need to really do is, we need to actually get our act together. Now, how do we get our act together? As you rightly said, we've been discussing it all through the day.
Give me points, Nilanjana Chakrabarti. Give me actual
laws and clauses.
Give me points that you believe needs to be done. You said get our acts together. Who's going to get our act together? Is it the government? Is it the people?
I think we need to. Just let me just finish. What we need to honestly do is, we need to actually have better policing. That's very, very important. How does a woman feel safe on the streets? When she knows that she's been taken care of, she's been protected. If she's in trouble, if she calls up, she makes a call, if there's an app. All these things need to be active. First and foremost thing, the transportation system. What about a transportation system? There are a lot of girls who work late in the night, and in fact who come by these these Olas and Ubers. So how does one protect oneself? So we have to have a safety network. So how do we guarantee safety? We need to have a conversation, we have to bring them on the table to talk, that if you do this, these are the norms that you have to abide by. This is the very, very basic I'm talking about. Because today we have n number of women working. So how does one tackle today? Transportation is a very, very big aspect that we cannot ignore. Walking on the road, better policing, as that gentleman just said, that we need to have better policing. Yes, and CCTV cameras.
Let me just bring in Vikram Singh. Let me bring in Vikram Singh.
Tomorrow, if I am stalked.
Right, let me bring in Vikram Singh. Vikram Singh, for a population of 1 lakh, per 1 lakh in India, we have 163 police officers. That is woefully short of what it should be. And we've talked about this several times, Vikram Singh. Our police force in all of our cities is not sensitized. And I want to share this experience, even in the city of Mumbai. I accompanied a colleague of mine to file a complaint of molestation, and the police in Mumbai turned around and told us, if you are going to be journalists, if you are going to go to crowded places to do your job, you should expect this to happen to you. This is not a big deal. Why do you want to file a complaint? You know you'll have to come to court. You'll know you'll have to give witness. You're going to start something that you will not complete later. They tried everything in their power, Vikram Singh, to get us to not file that complaint. Now, this is Mumbai. We're not even talking about what happens in the rest of the country. The police force needs to be educated, and we need more policemen on the ground, Vikram Singh.
Obviously, Faye, where ignorance is bliss, it is folly to be wise. If that happened to you and your colleague in Mumbai, I shudder to think what would happen in the remote parts of the country. Yes, there are 30% vacancies in almost all the states and in all the police forces. We need to fill up these vacancies on a priority. Number 2, the force multipliers. Number 3, the technology. Number 4, last but not the least, to make the policemen more sensitive and have at least 30% of all the total force, 30% of the reserved category of women must be a part of the police force to make it more sensitive, more proactive, and to run the extra mile in as far as such cases are concerned. I'm sure no lady police officer would have talked so irresponsibly as this happened to you and to your colleague. And Mr. Ramchandra and I would hang our heads in shame that this is what is happening in Mumbai. Well, as far as the force multipliers and technology is concerned, the second point, I would say that 80,000 suggestions were given to late Justice Verma after the horrific Nirbhaya case, and they have been incorporated in the 13th Criminal Law Amendment Act. But implementation of law is one thing that is sadly missing. Section 166A is meant for those police officers, as it happened to you, that if your FIR is not lodged or somebody comes out with a pearl of wisdom like this, then 166A should have been lodged against him. How many cases of 166A IPC have been lodged, and how many police officers have been suspended and dismissed from service? I can't think of very many, except 1 or 2 maybe, but that is just not enough. You have to be cruel to be kind. If you really want the police force to be sensitive, the deadwood has to go. As far as CCTVs are concerned, as far as alarm systems are concerned, as far as other force multipliers are concerned, they are an imperative. Smart control rooms, digital mapping, as we talked earlier about the alarm systems in Ola, Uber and other cabs, and then zero tolerance in the society to see that if anything like that happens, nobody trivializes it, nobody commodifies it, nobody passes it as a joke. People should learn to take it seriously, and when there is zero tolerance in the public and in the police force, when there is collective responsibility, we do away with leaders who say, "Ye to bacche hain, bachchon se galtiyan ho jati hai." No, sorry, yes, they are not bachchas. They should have been dealt with as per law. They should have been thrown behind bars, and they should have been behind bars for the rest of their lives. And this judgment is a deterrent, and such deterrent and exemplary action needs to be taken in all the cases.
Gopal Krishna Agarwal, respond to that. 30% vacancy still in police forces across several states, across most of the states. What are we doing as governments right now? And since you are the representative of the BJP, let me point out to you that 30% vacancy is across the state of Maharashtra, across the state of Gujarat, across the state of Uttar Pradesh. Several BJP-run states as well have a huge vacancy for police forces. If we don't hire the number of the policemen that we need, how are we going to keep our streets safe?
No, actually, it is not the only question. Definitely, I understand that if there is a vacancy, that has to be filled, and the number of percentage related to the population is very low. That is the same with case of judges. Everything, there is infrastructure shortages on these factors. But in addition to this, what we need is sensitization of police force on the issues of women's safety, gender equality. Over a period, we have seen there is a deterioration on the with regard to women's safety, and that people have said here that education is one of the factor. But that alone, we have to tackle the
Gopal
issue
Krishna,
on all
whose
fronts.
responsibility is it?
Who's
So you're calling out a laundry list of things that need to be done. Whose responsibility is it to get it done? Whose responsibility is law and order?
It is the state government. Law and order is a responsibility of the state government, and they have to do it. That is the thing, and our government is trying. You see in the UP, the way government is working for women's safety in particular. We have just now come into power not more than 2 months. And our focus area in Uttar Pradesh, which has seen the maximum number of crimes against women in Uttar Pradesh, there the government, Yogi Adityanath government, is working overtime day and night to put up these things.
Doing what? Working overtime, doing what?
Women police stations are there. Identifying the police stations which are only for catering to the women only police stations. Then anti-Romeo squad is being implemented. Then women coordination volunteers.
Let me point out to you one thing, Gopal Krishna Agarwal. Let me point out to you one thing. First of all, when you have to have a woman's only police station, you are as a government accepting the fact that there is something horribly wrong with your male policemen. So you're not fixing that problem. You're saying our male policemen are so unworthy of our trust that we have to create women only police stations. Secondly, the anti-Romeo squad. The anti-Romeo squad solves no issues at all except to actually harass people on the ground. There are lots of things that need to be done, and the anti-Romeo squad is not the solution that is needed in Uttar Pradesh. Vikram Singh, you are former DGP of Uttar Pradesh. What is being done? Are you convinced with what is being done in Uttar Pradesh right now?
No, let me, one more thing I want to add.
Not really. Faye, I would just make 2 quick points for Mr. Agarwal. Firstly, the Supreme Court has summoned the chief secretaries and the DGPs of several states and asking them what is the reason why you've not been able to fill up the vacancies. Are you waiting for some kind of an opportune time to have a politically right atmosphere so that you can fill up the vacancies at that time, so that it translates into votes? If that not be the case, then why not fill up the vacancies immediately, get the lady police officers in position? And then getting the anti-Romeo squad is almost like addressing a temperature of the human body to address an inner disease. Please go after the inner disease and the temperature will cure itself. Get after the lumpen elements, get after the crime and criminals, get the CCTNS in position, get after all the hardcore criminals, ensure proper patrolling, picketing and surveillance, and things will solve itself. But do not treat the symptoms, treat the disease.
I want to bring in Swapnil Kothari. Swapnil Kothari, there was a mention of the vacancies. There was a mention of the vacancies. 1 second, Gopal Krishna Agarwal, I'll come back to you. There was a mention of vacancies of judges in various courts. The fact that we are understaffed, which is why most judges are overworking themselves and which is why it takes so long to get through cases. Please explain to our audience what the government's role has been. Well, in that situation.
Yes, the government has woken up to this fact at a very late stage that we are understaffed with the judges, especially when they saw the ex-Chief Justice of India, T.S. Thakur, shedding a tear at that time when he had that sort of a debate with Mr. Narendra Modi. At that point in time, the government woke up to the fact that shedding a tear was something which, was equivalent to, an inundation of, maladies that you can't see. I've never seen in my past 23 years of practice a Chief Justice crying. Now, this particular judgment, in fact, is a stark reminder of this very sordid fact that it is only the judiciary which comes to bell the cat. I completely echo the sentiments voiced by by DGP Vikram Singh in the sense that the police, I would want, that is the judiciary, that is the last resort where it's supposed to adjudicate. What is the meaning of separation of powers by the in our democratic form of government? First is that the executive, that the legislature legislates, the executive executes and administers, and then the judiciary adjudicates. What are the first two arms, the pillars of the doing? And then the fourth, fortunately, because of the fourth pillar that we have today, that is the media, the very vigilant media and the press that is bringing these kind of situations. Why do you think Nirbhaya case got to justice so fast? It happened on December 16, 2012. Somewhere in 2013 there was a judgment by the trial court. Next year confirmation by the High Court. In the next 3 years we have the Supreme Court confirming the sentence, and then there's going to be a review petition, a curative petition, all of which is going to be tossed. But so what I'm saying is that we need fast track courts. Where is this 1,000 crore Nirbhaya fund being done? Where is it? I think it needs to be spent on fast track the courts. If you remember, we had a special court for the Harshad Mehta scam. Why don't we have a special rape court for this kind of situations so that justice is meted out faster? And in these kind of cases, now that the Supreme Court has set this precedent and it's a 429-page judgment, I think they've laid out the rules for the rarest of rare cases. Just mete out death penalty straight away.
So let me answer that question, Swapnil Kothari. Where is the Nirbhaya fund? Gopal Krishna Agarwal, The Nirbhaya fund did not receive an allocation from the finance minister in this year's budget. And to make matters worse, the only allocation that has gone out of the Nirbhaya fund is to put CCTV cameras in railway stations, which technically the railway ministry should be paying for, not the Nirbhaya fund. To make matters worse and to rub salt in burning wounds, the government of India has taken what was the Nirbhaya crisis centers meant for rape victims and changed the name to Sakhi crisis centers. That is your only contribution you have made in the last 3 years to the process of giving aid to the people who really need it. Please tell me, what has the government of India achieved by insulting the memory of this victim and changing the name of the crisis centers from Nirbhaya centers to Sakhi crisis centers? Please tell me, since that has been your big achievement.
No, I tell you, the question is that you cannot deal with the problem in a isolated manner. If you talk of the basic problem with the police was that they are not properly sensitized to the
my question is about the crisis centers, Mr. Agarwal.
Persisting in the country.
My question is about the crisis centers.
I'll tell you, 79 centers. There was a question in the Supreme Court, and the government has replied that 79 centers, one-stop centers for the help for the women, has already been sanctioned, and several have been implemented. There is a CCTV camera which is going on. There is a compensation fund being created out of it.
How long will it take? How long will it take? We've had enough people come here. Gopal Krishna Agarwal on my channel today and said 5 years for this verdict is too long, but the government is still setting things up. You are still figuring things out. You are still making plans. Please tell me how long it will take. How long does it take the government to make a plan to set up a crisis center?
If you go into the recruitment process, I tell you, if you talk of only 3,000 crore of spent on the Nirbhaya fund, will it solve the problem? No, we are saying it will not solve the problem.
So what will solve the problem? Tell me what your master plan is. What will solve the problem?
Took place, how much corruption it was there.
What will solve the problem?
The basic thing is has to work on all front. You have to ultimately sensitize the police force.
Are you doing that?
The people work through the Women Commission.
Are you doing that?
Women and child. Everything is being done. Definitely. Otherwise, you see, I am telling you, in Uttar Pradesh alone, recently, the way government is moving, it's a risk. Ultimately, it is the issue of the state government which has to look into the law.
But you are running most of the state governments as well. What are you doing in each state? Please tell me. Give me one point.
So
give me one conclusive point of evidence and data that you have actually achieved something. Is there a single state where the number of rapes have come down? Is there a single state where you have conclusively achieved something? All of these things that you're talking about, that you say must be done, we must do together, government is working as hard as it can. If this is the government working as hard as it can, this is not good enough. And you should no longer have this job because your best is not enough.
No, we agree this is not enough. This is not enough. But we are moving towards it. It's only 3 years that our
Don't say only 3 years. Don't say only 3 years. I'm sorry. I hate that answer. Don't say only 3 years. You have a 5-year term. 3 years is more than half of that 5-year term. You should have achieved at least 60% of your promises by now. Saying it's only 3 years is not good enough. You did not come to power saying अच्छे दिन तब आएंगे जब आप लोग हमें दूसरी बार elect करेंगे. अच्छे दिन तब आएंगे 4 साल बाद जब हम काम करना शुरू करेंगे. अच्छे दिन तब आएंगे जब हम सीसीटीवी कैमरा के बारे में प्लान बनाना शुरू करेंगे हमारे 5वीं साल में. आप लोगों ने ये नहीं बोला था. आपने बोला अच्छे दिन आएंगे. आपने बोला भ्रष्टाचार मुक्त भारत. आपने बोला कि women will be safe in this country. Where is the evidence for these things?
Twitter account.
What? Did you say Twitter account?
The government has given 181 reserve 181 number for women helpline. It has been allotted to most of the states. They have to implement. Government has in UP cancelled the appointment of the police force. There was a large scale corruption in that.
Listen, Mr. Agarwal, let me just point out one thing to you. I agree that there was large scale corruption in this country, but let me tell you something. All evidence shows us that the corruption continues.
No,
that all of the government offices that we still have to deal with, to pay our taxes, to register our houses, to go and do any sort of government work, we're still having to pay bribes. So please don't tell me that your big lofty idea of removing corruption from this country is the one thing that you're focusing on and that you have achieved, because you have not achieved that also. Please, I'm going to give you a minute, Mr. Agarwal, so you can actually, you can check or you can do some checking to find out if there is one thing the government has actually achieved for the safety of women. Please come back and tell us that. Viraf Patel is also on the show. Viraf, I'm sorry I'm coming to you this late. Viraf is a model and an actor.
181 has been set up in 18 states.
Viraf?
181 helpline, women helpline number is
181 doesn't work, Mr. Agarwal. 181 doesn't work, Mr. Agarwal. I'm sorry, Viraf, it's Viraf's turn to speak. Viraf, do you believe that the women in our country are safe? Have we learnt anything in the last 5 years?
The 2 lakh police personnel who are...
I don't think we have learned anything, and I feel extremely apologetic being a man in this country, because after 5 years, after a case like Nirbhaya, if we are still where we are, I think that's really a comment on the men of this society, the society called India at least. What are we men doing? Really, what are we men doing? And for once, let's keep the government aside. Let's give the government a break. This gentleman from the government who's representing, he's just doing his job. He has to stand up for the government. But I want to appeal to all the men in the country. Like, what have you done differently since 2012? Have we? How many of us have taken the cue to maybe refine and recondition and rewire a possible brother or a friend who is out there hitting on a woman and probably going about it the wrong way? I mean, if all the men in this country, which is about half the population of this country, decide to do something, you think it will take 5 years to happen? It takes one night for things to happen. I'm appalled at the fact that some people on this panel are saying that 5 years is a good enough time to get justice. Why? How can the Prime Minister be okay with this? It happened in 2012, and why did we wait for 5 years to even discuss this? Why were we not after the government's back to bring in all the deterrence, as one gentleman pointed out, CCTVs? Why is the police force not being well equipped? Why can't the payoff of salary be increased so that more people can be invited into the forces, as they can see it as lucrative jobs? We anyways are dealing with an employment problem in the country, aren't we? So I am appalled at the men. I apologize, I myself apologize that I myself, when I look back 5 years and I see really what have I done as an individual to change the scenario? Does my maid feel safer while coming to work? I haven't really asked her that. I have not asked her that, listen, if I pay you 1,000 rupees more, will you get that money to go in a rickshaw to come, reach home safely when you're going back? If you reach home, I actually, it's a lot of introspection, and I somewhere disagree with you, Faye, when you say that, okay, we will educate, and the 6-year-old boy is getting the education, but what about the 2 generations? No, we need to talk to that 18-year-old boy who's going to come out of college also. We need to talk to that 25-year-old executive who's working in somewhere in your building,
Viraf Patel, that's
where
an
you're
excellent
operating
point.
this channel
I appreciate
from.
what you're saying. I appreciate what you're saying. Now, for a government, and I personally believe that a citizen has two main duties. You pay your taxes and you vote responsibly, and you bring in a government that is meant to do their jobs. Now, for a government that is constantly turning around and telling us it is society and society needs to change, let me point out to you, there is
I disagree, Faye, that's not
formal. Hang on,
that's not what my school taught me. That's not my duty.
Okay, did your school have any sort of sex education, Viraf? Do you not believe that governments need to include sex education in all schools? Let me point out to you that there is no sex education in any of our schools, especially the primary or the secondary schools, especially the government schools. Now, this is something that can be done. If we are serious about educating the 6-year-olds and the 10-year-olds and the 18-year-olds, we can include it in the syllabus. This is something we can control, and we can teach them things that they need to know. It comes out of an organized pipe of information that the government controls. My point is simply this. Yes, we all need to be vigilant. Yes, as citizens, we need to watch out for each other, and that is really how we can be safe.
I think we need to put the government to shame. This government is actually Can't we use this platform of the media to hold a mirror like you are Mirror now. Let's see really what happened. In 2012, a ghastly incident happened. And what happened? The government had a knee-jerk reaction because they were under pressure caused by you, the media, to show the country that, hey, we are doing something. Hence the Nirbhaya fund, hence all the action plans that have gone on. Really, how much have we implemented? This government, or any government for that matter, to implement something in a population of 1.25 billion people is going to take probably a generation.
No, actually, we implemented Aadhaar, we implemented demonetization. Do not undersell our government, Viraf Patel. We implemented demonetization overnight. We've implemented Aadhaar overnight. You should not believe that this government is going to take many generations to implement anything. We have the capacity to track each person in this country. We have the capacity for vigilance, which we're using for the wrong things. 1 second, Viraf, I want to bring in Aishwarya Bhati. Aishwarya Bhati, and also M. Ramchandran, I'm going to come to you as well. Aishwarya Bhati, there is a lot left to be desired. And I'm pinning the blame solely tonight on the government of India for not doing more for the daughters of this country. Aishwarya Bhati.
Faye, you know, we are talking today on a day when the Nirbhaya judgment has come, and while we are all hailing the triumph of justice that has happened for Nirbhaya, the fact remains...
Aishwarya, go ahead. Viraf, I'll come back to you.
The fact remains that there are, you know, more Nirbhayas happening every day, and in fact every hour as we speak in our country. You know, we saw a lot of positive changes in the law. The definition of rape was enhanced. The laws were amended to include, smaller offences like eve teasing, stalking, even serious offences like acid throwing, voyeurism. All this was included in the criminal laws of our country. The Juvenile Justice Act was amended to include people who were at the verge of or the cusp of, of being major, but their intention was necessary. So we saw a barrage of changes in our criminal jurisprudence, which were all very welcome changes. But you know what we were lacking on earlier were not really the laws. While these changes are welcome, but where we were really lacking was the enforcement. The law enforcement and implementation is where we were lacking. When I talk about law enforcement and implementation, most important thing is the turnaround time, the response from the police. Does a woman today feel safe walking around, on the public streets and going about her day? And if anything untoward happens with her, does she feel safe to go to a police station, lodge an FIR of the untoward incident that would have happened to her? Does her family has confidence in the system that she will be meted out with justice? Does the entire criminal justice system, when she is facing that as a victim and trying to get justice for herself, does it become, adding insult to injury? Those are the questions that need to be asked. Today, the times that we live in, investigation, the science is missing from investigation. Science and technology, all of us have included in our personal lives. We all use science and technology as force multipliers in our personal life, in our professional lives. But you know how much of science and technology still is used by the investigative arm, which is supposed to be responsible for solving crimes? Zilch of what is really available. And we are talking of offenses which are, a rape, for example, is an offense where the accused actually leaves his evidence in the victim's body, and you still are talking about where we are not dealing with scientific investigation and technology being used. These are very, very sorry state of affairs, and forever the importance, I think the focus has not been there on women's safety. Of course, the mindset of society cannot be divorced, and it's not about, having sex education in schools. It is about having value education at homes, teaching your sons the right things, teaching your daughters to be courageous, to speak up and demand what they really need to demand, what they deserve to demand. And it is about having the right kind of moral values and education in our schools. But the state machinery is a very important machinery, and that citizens cannot achieve what a state machinery can achieve.
Thank you.
There are, this is not
let me just bring in M. Ramchandran. M. Ramchandran, Aishwarya is the president and the CEO of the Indian Police Foundation. 1 second. M. Ramchandran is the president and the CEO of the Indian Police Foundation. Mr. Ramchandran, everything that Aishwarya just said, the lack of technology in investigation, the shortage of staff in our police forces, the shortage of sensitivity, the kind of things that policemen say to victims of crime. Were you drinking? What were you wearing? What were you doing out at night? Well, I had a colleague who told me just the other day that when someone complained about stalking on Facebook in Mumbai again, the cop turned around and said, "Why are you on Facebook? Achhe ghar ki ladkiyan don't get on Facebook." There's something horribly wrong with our systems.
You are right, Faye. We must, I would like to call your attention to what has been, said by Justice J.S. Verma immediately after the Nirbhaya incident. Justice J.S. Verma commission had brought out this beautiful report in which certain things have been very, pointed out. Number one, that any amount of laws that you may have, as long as it is not well enforced, these laws can be of no value. This is what Justice Verma mentioned. Now, for enforcement, again, he has pointed out that one of the things that the country has to focus on is police reform. Now, the police, I don't know, there is a general reluctance on the part of every political party, every government in this country, whether they are at the state or at the center, in investing adequately in modernizing the police, professionalizing the police. So what happens is that we are continuously, we are perpetrating the old system again and again, and we don't learn lessons even after these kind of horrific incidents. Of course, there are exceptions, like Delhi police did a good job, and they, unlike what has been pointed out in the last Delhi police did marshal quite a bit of evidence. They resorted to, to getting, DNA analysis and all these scientific modes of investigation, and that is why they have been successful. But then the issue is that Delhi police is very well looked after, but most states in this country, the police is the last or probably the least provided for among government organizations. So what we are trying, one more point I wanted to make was that
I'll come to you to respond to all of this. I just want to bring in Swapnil. Swapnil, go ahead.
Yes, Faye, I will approach, after say 45 minutes of this debate, I will approach this issue in three aspects. The first aspect is, as Aishwarya rightly pointed out, and Viraf also pointed out, that we need some tutelage at home. Teaching our daughters to be courageous and teaching our teenage children, certain lessons in life and certain realities of the fact that women need to be respected and not revered at the moment, to begin with, just first respected, and then, on their own accord, they can revere if they wish to. Second aspect is now coming to the aspect, once we've done that, then we need to go to the administrative aspect of something, which is now the responsibility of the government. Mr. Agarwal, you pointed out the fact that 1,000, 3,000 crores are not enough. I don't think that is an appropriate statement to make, for the simple reason you are talking of remedial measures. You're talking of compensation fund being established, 181 number being established, certain rape crisis centers being established, if at all they are established. I'm not so sure about that. But these are remedial measures. I'm talking of preventive measures. Teach, sensitize the police to first of all do patrol, picket, as Mr. Singh pointed out, and also have these regular primers every day when they come in the morning as to how this needs to be prevented. Then we'll talk of remedy. And then the third aspect I would talk about, when as far as the judiciary is concerned, as Viraf pointed out, unfortunately, Viraf, I disagree with you here, that 5 years for 3 courts to give a judgment within a span of 5 years, or not even 5, it's 4.5, starting from December 12th to May 5th. It's an achievement as far as this is concerned, given the fact, given the circumstances in which the judiciary is overburdened and inundated with cases and the way it's functioning. So we need to, out of that 3,000 crores, even if we spend some 30-40 crores out of establishing some rape courts, fast-track courts, this will create, just have that separate court for these kind of cases.
Do we have the judges?
Cases.
Do we have the judges?
Yeah,
do we have the judges?
We don't. That's the reason why we need to put that money and bring in more judges. That is the responsibility of the government. That is what the government's job is, to appoint more judges in consultation with the collegium of the judges. So, this is what it recommends. The collegium recommends it to the government approves of it. So, the government is sitting on it.
I'm just seeing my Faye.
Yes, go ahead.
Sir, I think, I just noticed a poll which Mirror Now, your channel, has done on the social media, and you've asked the question, 5 years after Nirbhaya, are our cities safe? And out of the poll results, which have about 1,200 votes, 89% say no.
I agree.
I think the government needs to take note of this, that after 5 years of Nirbhaya, and for I beg your pardon, why am I calling this Nirbhaya? After 5 years of Jyoti's case, and I request all you panelists to not call it Nirbhaya and call it the Jyoti case,
one second. I understand your sentiment.
The guys who are going to get hanged,
I understand your sentiment, Viraf Patel, but you are not allowed to use her name. She is, after all, there is a law against using her name.
Why isn't the government looking at polls like these?
It doesn't matter anymore.
It matters.
No, it does matter.
It matters. And I continue to use the word Nirbhaya because Nirbhaya is not just a person anymore. She's an idea.
When the mother of the victim is going out there and saying something, I think we could respect that sentiment as well.
Yes.
This is what we really need to change.
Is an idea. Nirbhaya is an idea, Viraf, that everybody recognizes. Nirbhaya is a connection that people fought for. Yes, we can use her name. Yes, we could consider it. But when you say Nirbhaya, it reminds people of a fight, and I think we're getting derailed here from what we're actually talking about. I understand and respect your sentiment, but I'm going to take your question to Gopal Krishna Agarwal. 89% of our viewers believe that our cities are not safe, Gopal Krishna Agarwal. We've achieved nothing. Women do not feel safe. Half the population, half your voters in the 2019 elections don't feel safe, Gopal Krishna Agarwal.
I think we need to we need to discuss this within 1 month again as what is the government going to be doing?
I would also like to say that,
one at a time. Let Mr. Agarwal finish his answer.
Mr. Agarwal has no answers to finish. This is kind of, all he does is talk about issues. The fact is that today we feel more unsafe than ever before. I feel more unsafe today in Delhi, in UP, in Lucknow, in Gujarat, in Ahmedabad, in every city today. I feel 20 times more unsafe than I did in 2012. And this is because at the heart of our government, their ideology and everything that they believe in is backwards. They seem to believe that women have less of a right over their own bodies than any other government, I believe, in the past. They reinforce this idea by setting up things like anti-Romeo squads. Why don't you call them anti-rape squads? Why do you call them anti-Romeo? You call them anti-Romeo because you believe that women don't have the right to fall in love. According to you, our lives are basically, our lives should be the way you want them to be. This is basically what rape culture is.
We heard you now.
Rape is an act of power, sir. What you are doing is essentially you are increasing.
We have heard you.
No, I don't think you have, sir. I don't think you want to hear anything at all. The fact is that women need to be assured of greater autonomy over their own lives and bodies. Everything that you are doing is actually making us feel like we have absolutely no control over our lives and bodies. Why don't you call back the anti-Romeo squads and start calling them anti-rape squads to start with?
Why don't you call the crisis centers Nirbhaya centers? Why don't you actually put rape and safety for women?
Now have the courage to listen to the answer.
I'm sorry, sir, but you haven't given any answers.
Listen to the answer. Just putting the question and not allowing. Now,
okay. Gopal Krishna Agarwal, give me the answers. I'm listening. Give me the answers. Give me the answers. But I promise you, we have a very short rope. Give me the answers.
Yes, I tell you, the Prime Minister said from the rampant of the Red Fort that the people of the country should ask their son what he did in the day.
Giving me lip service.
That is the mindset that we need.
Stop giving me lip service, Mr. Gopal Krishna Agarwal.
Of the mindset, then Nirbhaya was happened in the time of Congress.
How many sex education formats have you released to government schools across the country? Let's talk about mindset.
Of the people like this who give false allegation and false narration to the whole debate is derailing the whole debate.
How many modules of sex education have you instituted in government schools?
Bringing it back on track, to be honest.
The problem is that you keep saying things. You keep saying
then
things.
She will talk of
Oh God.
Mr. Gopal Krishna Agarwal, one second. Mr. Gopal Krishna Agarwal, the questions were very simple. What have you done? Unless you can give us an answer of what you've done, you're wasting my time. And this is national television. Our time is precious.
Give me a chance to ask a very relevant question.
Okay, Virat, very quickly, ask your question.
I think one should rise above petty politics.
No, you asked.
I think that's very important.
Nirbhaya case happened.
The government did something really remarkable. They planned with the RBI and did something called demonetization and changed the currency overnight. And 3 months the whole nation was up in arms trying to deal with a phenomena called demonetization, right?
The Prime Minister had the courage to speak from the rampant.
I want to ask the government that just the way they did demonetization, can they
And you have the courage to speak here.
country?
And I have the courage to speak. Is that all we have the courage to speak?
Who tells the people and their...
What does that mean, Gopal Krishna Agarwal? What does that mean? What does that mean, Gopal Krishna Agarwal? So the Prime Minister made a statement that was very welcome. I remember we cheered it when it happened. What happened after that statement? Please tell me what happened after that statement. How many years has it been since that statement? What have you done? कौन सी बेटी को आपने बचाया है? Please बोल दीजिए मुझे. कौन सी बेटी को आपने बचाया है?
You talk बेटी बचाओ बेटी पढ़ाओ is a beti bachao beti padhao is a major scheme of the government.
Doing what?
Major focus.
Doing what?
Toilets is a major focus.
Doing what? Why can't you say the word rape? Gopal Krishna Agarwal, I challenge you and your government to say the word rape. You are building toilets. You are creating employment. You are doing skills development. You refuse to use the word rape. None of your manifestos will address the problem. None of your manifestos will actually talk about safety for women. You've not done any work in the area of safety for women. All you're talking about is skills. You're talking about Anganwadis. You're talking about building toilets. Address the problem. Address the problem, Gopal Krishna Agarwal.
We are opening toilets. There is a rampant corruption in the fulfilling the post of police personnel. That we have changed.
Where in Madhya Pradesh?
There is a triple talaq issue. So many issues.
Stop politicizing. Stop politicizing. Gopal Krishna Agarwal, today of all days, in honor of the memory of this woman who gave her life to awaken the public consciousness of this country to what is happening to women, in the honor of her mother who has fought for 5 years for justice, you should not be politicizing the issue and bringing up this government and that government, this politics and that politics. Let me tell you something. Let me tell you something, audience. Every 4 hours in the city of Delhi, a rape is reported. 4 hours. What is the size of the city of Delhi? Is it geographically large enough to have a rape take place every 4 hours? Every 9 minutes in the city of Delhi, there is a crisis phone call from a woman in distress. And we're not even talking about the rapes that don't get reported. We're not even talking about the rest of the country. The number of rapes that happen in our country make my blood curdle every day. And there are a lot of cases, the victims are 7 years old, they're 2 months old, they're 3 months old, and this is not because of anything else. The government would like to have you believe that we are a sick and degraded people. We are not. We are a people in need of law enforcement. We are a people in need of a law that matters. We are people in need of a government that cares about us. What are the points that came up? 30% of our police forces have vacancies. The government's responsibility. There aren't enough judges being nominated to various courts. The government's responsibility. Our streets and our cities might be smart cities. They are not safe cities. The government's responsibility. This rape happened in public transport. Are our public transport spaces safe? Whose responsibility is that? It's the government's responsibility. Look at the street corners. Look at the underpassways. Look at the spaces outside of Delhi metros. They're dark. They're unsafe. They allow for people to take advantage of victims. And in our police forces and in our police offices and in our police centers, the victims are victimized one more time. And if Mr. Gopal Krishna Agarwal wants to so much convince me that you're doing enough, I will be convinced when you pick out the entire list of your own politicians who have said degrading and disrespectful things about women and throw them out. They all still have positions in your government. You care nothing about us. Nothing at all. You can stand today and say you welcome this judgment, but it has come from the Supreme Court. It has not come from you. You've done precious little. I will welcome the government of the day of any state to come onto this show and give me hard fact evidence that you have done something, anything at all for women, I will give you this platform. But until you can give me evidence, I no longer want to hear your rhetoric about how you are going to educate us and you're going to save us, because that is just words. And words will no longer do. We're watching.